The darkness is deep, the silence is silent. Walking in such a place, Carlson didn't feel nervous at all, on the contrary, he was very calm, thinking back to the task given to him by the director. 2 months ago, there were frequent murders in various areas of New York. All the victims showed the characteristics of being bitten by sharp teeth and even being eaten. This is incredible. The incidents were all located in prosperous cities far away from the wild, and there were no large and ferocious animals lost in the nearby zoos. It is hard to imagine that there would be animals that would dare to invade human territory and go hunting. In the end, the police and FBI investigators found nothing. This caught the attention of SHIELD. They investigated through high-tech equipment and criminal investigation methods that general departments do not have, and in the end, they found nothing. Fury thinks this is not easy, and coupled with the impact of the cannibal case on society, he sent his most trusted subordinate Coulson. Coulson didn't care at first. SHIELD is a department specially set up for supernatural events. He has dealt with many supernatural events, and this one will only be one of the many cases that he has solved as an agent of SHIELD. But whether it's a criminal investigation method that far exceeds the world's current level, or a high-tech item that exceeds the world's current level. After 2 weeks of investigation, he couldn't find any clues. In this process, the frequency of cases broke out even higher, causing huge social repercussions. Under the pressure of public opinion, various departments and SHIELD have stepped up their investigation efforts. But still nothing. And when Coulson couldn't think of a way, he tried to ask an old friend. Said to be an old friend, but in reality they only had 2 transactions. He is an Asian young man in his 20s. His identity is a mystery. He opened a master's house in Hell's Kitchen and was responsible for collecting money and doing things. But although it is to collect money to do things, it is very principled. Although he is not a good citizen who obeys discipline and law, he is also a person who has self-judgment about good and evil, right and wrong, and his code of conduct is on the moral level. Coulson noticed him in an incident and solved it perfectly with his help. Afterwards, they cooperated once again, and they still solved it perfectly. And this is the 3rd time. To be honest, Coulson would definitely not want to work with this person if he could. Because he is too mysterious. I don't know where he came from, nor his family status, nor his purpose. Even with the authority of the director of SHIELD, it can only be found that this man suddenly appeared in Manhattan a year ago and opened a convenience store in Hell's Kitchen. The rest can't be found at all, as if they appeared out of thin air. When working with such a person, Coulson always felt that the other party was planning something behind the scenes, and he was very worried. Perhaps the agent is naturally suspicious. In his thoughts, a ray of light appeared in his vision. Coulson stood still and looked at the windowsill shop in front of it, which was only 2 meters wide. The sign next to it read the 3 Chinese characters Wanchaiwu, and there was English below it. So he came from Xia country? Through the Chinese characters on the signboard, Coulson guessed in his heart. Yo, Coulson! A young man's upper body sticks out from the windowsill, with a cigarette in his mouth, looking at him with a smile. Coulson turned around as if nothing had happened, with a kind smile on his face, he greeted, Mr. Guqing, good evening. Not good at all. The corner of the young man known as Guqing raised his mouth slightly, as if he was very happy. If the business is good enough, no one likes to stay up until midnight every day. For the sake of life, I will do my best. Then why don't we work for S.H.I.E.L.D? Coulson said with a smile, although SHIELD is not a particularly high-paying job, it must have made more money than you. It's hard to say. Coulson glanced at the young man in surprise. Seeing that the other party maintained a confident smile, he couldn't help but ask curiously, do you have any disagreement with Mr. Guqing? Guqing took a breath of cigarette, slowly exhaled it, and said, although my place is remote and there are few people, it is easy to be regarded as a liar. But once in a while, a big order is enough for me to live in the upper class for a year or two. It's a day. Carlson's heart moved, but a reluctant smile appeared on his face, as if he couldn't believe it. Don't be kidding, in an industry that seems to be a liar, someone would really want to do big business with you. Certainly. Gu Qing tucked the cigarette into the ashtray and said comfortably, isn't this a big deal for me? Carlson was stunned for a moment, and immediately resumed his smile. Does Mr. Gu Qing know why I'm here? Recently, there have been many cases of cannibalism in the media. Then does Mr. Gu Qing know the inside story? It's not really inside information, I just happen to know some news. With that said, Gu Qing took out the credit card machine and said, with $200,000, the information is yours. 200,000. Carlson looked at him in surprise and dared not believe, are you crazy about money? What news is worth so much? If it's not worth it, Yuyuganshu www.yuyuganshu.com you can let the bank freeze my account. Gu Kingman said indifferently, we've worked together twice, don't you even have this trust? We don't know anything about Mr. Gu Qing, if you don't believe me, please do it. Gu Qing stretched out his right hand to the outside of the alley, with a gesture of whether he liked to buy it or not. Carlson stared at him closely. After a while, he relaxed and said, wait a minute, I have to apply for funding from above. At will. Gu Kingman took a handful of melon seeds from the shelf and nibbled casually. Seeing this, Carlson took a deep breath, then took out his phone and called Fury. That's what happened. After Carlson explained the situation, the other end of the phone was silent for a while before a low voice came. 200,000 can be given to him, but if the information is not worth that price, let the bank freeze his account. Learn. Also, if you can try to find out his source of intelligence. Clear. After Carlson finished speaking, the other side hung up. He raised his head and looked at the young man who was watching variety shows while eating melon seeds. He couldn't help taking a deep breath. The above promised. Carlson came to the window, took out his bank card, entered the password on the card reader, and said, now you can tell the details. Well, the account has arrived. When Gu Qing saw the incoming text message, a kind smile appeared on her face. Carlson, have you heard of ghosts? Ghost. Carlson was stunned for a moment, then came to his senses, widened his eyes, and said, do you want to say that the cannibalism case that happened during this period was caused by ghosts? After Gu Qing finished speaking, seeing that Carlson's blood pressure tended to rise, he hurriedly added, of course, unlike the ghosts in movies and novels, they are just humanoid creatures called ghosts. Hearing this, Carlson's mood eased slightly. Although humanoid creatures named ghosts sound unreliable, there is no such thing as the whole metaphysics to fool people. He took a deep breath and calmed down before asking, can you be more specific? You're the employer, it's no problem. Gu Qing smiled and said while nibbling on the melon seeds, the appearance of ghosts is no different from that of humans, but they feed on humans, have immortal and tougher bodies, and possess superhuman strengths. Beyond the abilities of ordinary people. You sound like a vampire. Well, it's really similar. Gu Qing took a breath and exhaled. They evolved from human beings through the blood of their ancestors like vampires, so they have the same appearance and intelligence as humans, and they are also unbearable. Food cravings. You say they don't grow old and don't die, so they don't have any weaknesses. Sunshine and the Sun Blade. Sun Blade. Carlson was surprised. Sunshine is fine, but dark creatures like ghosts are generally afraid. But what's going on with the sun wheel knife? Exorcism weapons like mercury bullets? That's it. Gu Qing took out a samurai sword from the counter and said with a smile on his face, this is a weapon made of special ore, which can cause effective damage to ghosts. If you use it to cut off ghosts' necks, they will also die. $1,000,000, one price. Carlson was stunned for a moment, then opened his mouth, but said nothing. He felt that he was being tricked. From the beginning of selling information on ghosts, and then to selling weapons to deal with ghosts. Isn't this just the same as those salesmen who come to sell products? But I need to apply for funding from above. After Carlson replied, he took out his mobile phone and made a call. Even if a weapon with special value like this is not the only way to kill ghosts, SHIELD will definitely buy one for research purposes. You have to apply for $1 million. It seems that Mr. Carlson's status in SHIELD is not good. Gu Qing held his cheeks and made fun of him in every possible way. I'm really sorry for my low status. Carlson shrugged innocently, conveying such a message. What's up? At this moment, the phone was connected, and a calm voice came from inside. Is such that? After Carlson explained the situation, the other end of the phone was silent for a while before it rang again. Let me talk to him. Okay. Carlson handed over the phone. Director Fury wants to chat with you. Gu Qing nodded, took the phone and said, Director Fury, why are you looking for me? Do you have a weapon sales qualification certificate? Gu Qing was stunned, then narrowed his eyes. Are you threatening me? No, just telling the truth. Fury's voice was as steady as ever, but what he said was often chilling. It is illegal to sell weapons without permission in a beautiful country. What do you want? $200,000. 2 million. 30. What did you say? Fury's eyes widened. He has dealt with grey industries that are on the edge of the law not once or twice, and he has rich experience. As long as he threatens with a legal stick, the other party will take into account the size of SHIELD and make concessions. This move has been unfavorable in the past. He was just doing the same. Therefore, after Gu Qing replied, he subconsciously bargained with the other party without thinking about it. Halfway through his words, he suddenly reacted. The other party is not bargaining with him, but is raising the price, and it has doubled directly. He couldn't believe it, thinking that his ears had heard it wrong. So did Carlson next to him. It was the first time he saw someone dare to openly challenge S.H.I.E.L.D. Okay. Not the first time. The current SHIELD is also called the Homeland Strategic Defense Offensive and Logistics Support Bureau. It has not been fully displayed in the public's field of vision. The public credit is very low, and there are not many people. But after knowing their identities and the nature of the organization, all who dare to do this are big men who can influence the national economy or the political arena. And Gu Qing? A guy whose origin is unknown, even the ID card is handled by them, and he is engaged in a grey industry. This kind of guy dares to fight against them. Do you really think that their SHIELD is a charity organization that helps grandma cross the road? I said, 2 million. Gu Qing declared again, with a loud voice, and no counter-offer was allowed. If I only need a phone call, your business will not be done. I just need a phone call, and your SHIELD will be gone. Fury. Coulson. Water Fark. After being stunned for a while, Fury scolded directly. Kid, if you have a problem with your brain, I have the best neurosurgeon in the world. Yuyuganshu www.yuyuganshu.com can help you treat it. But if you are not sick, I can guarantee that it will help you get sick. Gu Qing and Carlson have worked together twice, and they also have a certain understanding of each other. So, the other party released a threat after knowing what SHIELD really was. It's hard to imagine that he has no problems with his mind. 3000000. Gu Qing didn't scold him, just raised the price again. What fuck, you? Fury was speechless with anger. Of course, this is all fake. As the king of secret agents, he is better at emotional control than 99% of the people on Earth. He pretended to be out of breath because he wanted to see Gu Qing's reaction, and then judged from the other party's reaction whether he was talking nonsense or if he really thought he could threaten Shield. However, Director Fury, don't play the show. Gu Qing's mouth rose slightly, and he said confidently, every time the Security Council gives Shield a portion of the funds, you will be hacked, and $3 million is more than enough. What do you mean? Fury was shocked, but his face did not change, and his tone did not change at all. It sounded like a normal reaction after being slandered. Even Carlson thought Gu Qing was bluffing. Of course, whether he really thinks so, only he knows. This honest man who is almost bald is not as innocent as he looks. It doesn't matter if you think I'm bluffing, but if my business is affected, the information about your secret misappropriation of funds or even threatening the existence of Shield will be made public. After that, he added, don't forget what I do. After speaking, Gu Qing directly threw the phone to Carlson. 3 million is a lot, so don't come if you negotiate the price. Come back first and talk about it. Before Carlson could respond, Fury's voice rang on the phone. Then, there was a beep sound of hanging up. Carlson pursed his lips, shrugged, then looked at Gu Qing. See you next time. Well, see you next time. Both Carlson and Gu Qing knew that Fury couldn't give up the Sun Blade. The difference is only by what means. Ding! You got 100 wish points. Just after Carlson left, a mechanical prompt sounded in Gu Qing's mind. This is his system, and it is also the golden finger of traversal. Yes, Gu Qing is not from the Marvel world, but from the Earth of another world. When he woke up, he came to the Marvel world inexplicably. Fortunately, he activated the dimensional puppet system, which allows him to extract powerful puppets and items from the world of the heavens. There is no need to say much about extracting dolls, but extracting items includes skills, props, materials, bloodlines, abilities, etc. To extract dolls and extract items, you need to consume prayers. And the wish value needs to be collected from the intelligent creatures to produce surprises, horrors, frights, excitement, disgust, all kinds of emotions about the related things produced by the system. Obviously, this is a system that likes to make things happen. After Gu Qing learned this from the source of the wish value, in view of the fact that there are too many bigwigs in the Marvel world, in line with the concept of Go being the king, he decided to hide behind the scenes and let the puppet go out and get the wish value. Coincidentally, his novice gift bag has drawn the dolls of Kaiwasuji Wume and 12 Ghost Moon. After systematic confirmation and personal testing, it was determined that no one could find the relationship between him and the doll, and then there was a recent brutal incident of cannibalism. Of course, Gu Qing was not mad. He has given orders to the puppets, only those who are damned are allowed to do it. And there are too many such people in Hell's Kitchen. Open the Properties panel. Gu Qing meditated in his heart, and a very simple window panel appeared in front of him. Host, Gu Qing Skills, Sword Mastery, Breath of the Sun Item, Sun Blade Dolls, Ghost Dance Suji no Miserable, 12 Ghost Moon Prayer Value, 1006 Level. Level 6 items refer to the things drawn by the system, and the level. The system is divided into different levels according to the strength of the individual. From strong to weak, there are 9 grades: SSS, SS, S, A, B, C, D, E, and F. And each level is divided into 10 stars. Gu Qing obtained the Breath of the Sun and related swordsmanship through a lottery, and his strength reached level 6. Probably on the same level as the Winter Soldier, Falcon, and others. Gu Qing had never met these two people, but only made an estimate based on the movies he watched in his previous life and Iron Man's strength, so he wasn't sure. The prayer value has exceeded 1000 again, and if you do something, you can quickly reap the rewards. Seeing the prayer value on the panel, Gu Qing couldn't help but sigh. It has been a year since he crossed into this world. But before, because I was worried that a strong man like Gu Yi would notice him by observing the future or the timeline, I was always cautious and didn't dare to make big moves. The speed of harvesting the wish value is naturally very slow. It was not until 2 months ago that after the system guarantee and a series of experiments proved that it was really impossible for anyone to discover the relationship between themselves and the doll, did they boldly let Wu Mian and 12 Ghost Moon play freely. In the past 2 months, he has gained a prayer value of over 10,000. It's more than 10 times more than what he had gained in the past year. The Breath of the Sun and the Sun Wheel Knife were all drawn by lottery with the 10,000 prayer value. And now, it's only a day, and there's 1,000 more prayers. Tony only became Iron Man last month. At present, the Marvel world is not that dangerous. My strength is enough for the time being. Let's summon the puppets first. Gu Qing thought for a while and started the lottery. The system draws 100 prayer points once, and Gu Qing directly draws it 10 times in a row. Ding! You have obtained an Frank doll fragment. Ding! You have obtained a Crank doll fragment. Ding! You have obtained an E-class doll fragment. Ding! You have obtained a rank A doll fragment. Ding! You got the Crank doll auto suvan. 10 consecutive draws actually drew a Crank puppet. Gu Qing was a little surprised. He has drawn many prizes before, but the winning rate is very low. Before letting go of the hands and feet, only one of the swordsmanship proficient was drawn. After letting go of the hands and feet, the 10,000 prayer points obtained with the help of Wu Mian and 12 Gyo were divided into 250 consecutive draws, of which the 50 doll lottery draws are all fragments. The 50 item lottery draws only come out with a Breath of the Sun and a Sun Blade. And this time, a Crank puppet was directly drawn in the 10 consecutive draws. I have to say that today is a lot of luck. Unfortunately, there is no wish worth, otherwise I'll have to smoke. Gu Qing felt a little regretful. But he quickly picked up his mood and looked at the puppet he had drawn. Name, Auto Suvan. Occupation, Merchant, Interior Officer, Housekeeper. Skill, Earth Magic. Special Ability, Word Spirit. Level, Clevel 6. It's actually this God of War. After seeing the puppets in the system space, Gu Qing's eyes narrowed slightly. This Auto God of War came from a life in another world that started from scratch. In terms of physical fitness, he can easily handle 486 with a force of 60 kilograms, but he is far weaker than superhumans. Knows some weak earth magic that can only be cast under limited conditions, and the blessing of the word spirit can communicate with all things. But because the ability is immature, if it is used too frequently, it will cause a burden on the body, resulting in negative effects such as nosebleeds, shock, and brain death. Judging from the panel data alone, he is at most a level. But he is witty, calm when dealing with things, and he handles affairs in an orderly manner. Every time he can objectively analyze the key points of the problem, and find a reasonable way to deal with it, he often wipes the buttocks of the protagonist and his party. It is this kind of character and mind that led to his exaggerated record performance many times, so that he won the reputation of God of War Auto. But for such an excellent doll, Gu Qing was very distressed. How exactly do you use Auto's ability to attract more people's attention and gain prayer points? The doll has intelligence and retains the character and wisdom of the original owner, but has no self. Gu Qing can choose the smart mode to let the puppet play freely, or let consciousness descend on the puppet for manipulation. So don't worry about the puppet's feelings and the like. However, Auto's ability is not suitable for frontal combat, and it is difficult to deal with various emergencies as a hero. His character is also not suitable for playing the role of a bad guy, and he can't make a sensational case to get attention like 12 Gyu and Mume. Could it be, let him perform on the street? With Auto's ability to communicate with all things, if he performs on the street, the effect of the show will definitely explode, and there will definitely be a lot of audiences. But in this way, everyone will feel that this is the performance of the animal trainer. Even if there is amazement and applause, it is not given to the doll Otto produced by the system, but the animal trainer Otto, and cannot get the wish value. Shield Headquarters. Coulson is reporting to Fury. A ghost with the same characteristics as humans. After listening to Coulson's report, Fury pondered slightly. It's no wonder that neither us nor the police and the FBI can find any clues. It turns out that the investigation was in the wrong direction at the beginning. On the way back, I asked the archives. All murders happened at night, which is in line with what Guqing said that ghosts are afraid of the Sunday. Coulson added. Fury's eyes narrowed, and he said solemnly, just like this, we still can't judge whether Guqing's information is correct. Go and get the surveillance video near the scene at the time of the crime, find out the suspicious guy, and then investigate further. I have asked the people in the archives to investigate. After speaking, Coulson hesitated for a moment, then continued, if Guqing's information is correct, how should we deal with ghosts? If it's just dealing with super warriors, it's fine. With the various black technology equipment of SHIELD, as long as it is not particularly powerful, it can be solved. But according to Guqing, ghosts have physical qualities far beyond that of humans, as well as immortality and immortality, as well as other strange abilities. In this case, there is no way to fight. When Fury heard the words, he was also lost in thought. After a while, he said, find the ghost first, and then I will arrange for an expert to deal with ghosts to help. Besides, aren't ghosts afraid of sunlight? You can try an ultraviolet searchlight to see if it works. Understood. After receiving the order, Coulson left the director's office. And Fury was lost in thought again. If Guqing's information is correct, how did he know about ghosts? And why is there a weapon that can deal with ghosts? In addition, he said that my misappropriation of funds was out of temptation for the powerful, or did I really know something? If you really know something, what is the intelligence that can threaten the existence of SHIELD? Originally it was just an ordinary supernatural event, but now its importance is infinitely higher. These things must be investigated clearly. Fury focused his eyes, picked up the phone and dialed a number. Master Guqing. The person who saluted Guqing was a young man with a medium build, grey hair, long cheeks, and a weak temperament. He is Otto Suwen, a puppet summoned by Guqing gang. Otto, you will stay by my side as an assistant in the future. You are usually responsible for all the large and small affairs of the convenience store. The rest of the tasks will be notified separately. Understood, my lord, I will definitely work hard to do my job well. Otto answered sincerely. Guqing nodded slightly, very satisfied. Otto is not suitable for going out to do things, so Guqing decided to keep him by his side as an assistant. And he himself is the hand-slinger. Anyway, at present, there is no miserable and 12 ghost moons to help obtain the prayer value, and Otto is not worse. Then I'll leave it to you here, I'll go out for a walk. Please rest assured and leave it to me. Otto took the task with confidence. Manhattan, Greenwich Village. This is the wealthy area of New York, a quiet town away from the hustle and bustle of the city and only a 20-minute drive from the bustling city. Green mountains and green waters, lush green shades. When you are in it, your heart will become peaceful. But today, an uninvited guest came here. He is a black man. About 30 years old, with a short head and wearing sunglasses. The body is very strong, wearing military camouflage pants and vest, carrying 2 long swords, and a large caliber pistol on his thigh. He is the son of a curse, an abandoned person who lives only for revenge, so he has no name. But the outside world has such a name for him, Blade Warrior. Right here. The Blade Fighter came to a villa and stared at the gate with condensed eyes. He doesn't have the ability to see through, so he can't see what's inside. But his sense of smell is super sensitive, especially to blood. He smelled a strong smell of blood. In this villa, it's like a slaughterhouse, a human slaughterhouse. Are you having a blood feast again? A cold light flashed in the eyes of the Blade Warrior's sunglasses. He was born on a mission, his mother was bitten by a vampire while giving birth to him, and eventually died. And he was born half human, half vampire. He was born with hatred on his shoulders, shouldered the mission of exterminating vampires, and eventually became a vampire slayer. He has killed an unknown number of vampires, and he knows each other's habits and characteristics very well. Extremely thirsty for blood, and takes pleasure in eating humans. However, because humans have become the world leaders, the behavior of the vampires has also begun to subside, and they are only active in the dark. But there are still madmen. They often use various lies to gather a large number of human beings, and then start a blood feast. Every time a lot of people die, I will definitely kill all the vampires. The Blade Warrior murmured to himself in a low voice, and then kicked the door open with a kick. But what caught my eye was not the eye imagined, but a hall covered with cobwebs, like a spider's lair. How is this going? The Blade Warrior narrowed his eyes slightly. Judging from his experience, this place should be stained with blood, like a hellish scene. Why is it a cobweb lair? Isn't it a vampire? The so-called vampires are not as suspenseful as in fantasy novels. Although they have immortal bodies and their physical strength surpasses that of ordinary people, that's all, they don't have all kinds of blood magic that is beyond imagination. This kind of covering all villas with an area of more than 300 square meters with cobwebs is simply not something that a vampire can do. No, even if you can do it, you won't do it. After all, the two are not the same style. Who are you? At this moment, a voice came from upstairs. The blade fighter looked up and saw a child standing behind the railing on the second floor. But the blade fighter never relaxed because the opponent was a child. Instead, his hair stood upside down, and his entire body was tense. Judging from his appearance, this child is only about 10 years old, with white hair and white clothes, and red spots on his face. If it's just that, it's nothing, it's even a little cute. But his eyes are very strange. The pupil is divided into 2 layers, the outer layer is white, the inner layer is blue, and there are 2 dark spots inside. The whites of his eyes were blood red, like flesh that had been peeled off, which was extremely terrifying. However, it's not just looks. In the blade fighter's keen senses, this child exudes a terrifying aura, which makes him feel unprecedented pressure. I'm asking you something. The child's voice sounded again, with a hint of impatience in his tone. Breaking into someone else's house without any reason to satisfy me, then leave it as food. It really is a monster. The blade fighter took a deep breath, suddenly pulled out his 2 spears, raised his hand and shot. Bang bang bang! The blade fighters fired a salvo of 2 guns, and the gunfire intertwined into a rain to hunt and kill. The child didn't expect the blade fighter to be so decisive, so he started the fight without saying a word, so his reaction was a bit slow. But his speed was very fast. Although he moved a step slower, his defense was completed before the bullet arrived. The slender spider silk popped out of his fingers, intertwined into a web in the air, and then tightened into a cocoon to protect him inside. The bullet hit it with a flurry of sparks, but it didn't make any impact. Instead, the bounced or empty bullets left fist-sized holes in the walls and furniture. Do pistol bullets have such great power? It is naturally impossible for ordinary pistols to have this kind of power, but the Blade Warrior is half human and half vampire, inheriting all the advantages of vampire immortality, super physical fitness, super recovery, etc. Weaknesses such as stakes. Therefore, his weapon is also a super caliber pistol modified according to his arm strength. Ordinary people, even the most rigorously trained ace soldiers, will break their wrists due to the huge recoil force with just 1 shot. But such a huge recoil brings unimaginable power. It is obviously a pistol, but it is like a hand cannon or an anti-equipment sniper rifle. However, such a powerful pistol could not cause the slightest damage to the cocoon made of spider silk. Although the blade fighter did not think that this raid alone would solve the battle, he was also greatly surprised by the result. Ka. A round of bullets emptied. The blade fighter quickly put away the pistol and rushed into the house. He took 3 steps and 2 steps, jumped onto the coffee table, then kicked hard, leaped up, grabbed the hilt behind his back with both hands, and jumped to the 2nd floor, pulled it out, and chopped it off. When the 2 swords slashed on the cocoon, bursting out bright sparks, and the blade warrior was also bounced back by the reaction force. Whoa! The spider silk flew back, and the silkworm cocoon disappeared in the blink of an eye. The child's hands were intertwined with cobwebs like flower ropes, and he flicked them lightly, and the cobwebs were ejected, expanding continuously on the way. The blade fighter accelerated and retreated with the help of the rebound, and when he hit the railing, he did a backflip and jumped back downstairs. The next second, the cobweb flew by. The railings were suddenly torn apart and scattered all over the place. Seeing this, the blade warrior couldn't help but take a deep breath, and the happiness of the rest of his life after the catastrophe came spontaneously. If you just take a step slowly, the one who will be torn apart is yourself. At that time, even with the recovery ability of a vampire, it is impossible to survive. The style is quite decisive, but the strength is not enough. The child stood on the edge of the platform with a calm expression, looking down at the blade warrior. The blade fighter looked at him silently and did not respond. "You're not an ordinary person," the child continued. "I thought at first that you broke into other people's homes for robbery or something, but you launched an attack the moment you saw me, obviously not for money, so who are you? For what? Hidden in human society, feeds on human beings, and constantly plunders the lives and dignity of human beings." The blade warrior said rarely, "Although you are not a vampire, you are also a fellow of the same type. You should all be extinct." "Is that so, to protect humans?" "No, it's for revenge." The blade fighter put his hands on his back waist, suddenly pulled out 2 spiral flying knives, and threw them at the child. And he took a step slower and followed closely behind. "Vengeance!" The child's eyes trembled slightly, showing a look of interest. While popping out the spider silk, sticking to the flying spiral knife, and reflecting it back, he asked, "Vengeance for whom?" No respond. The blade warrior jumped up again, pulled out his 2 swords, and slashed flying swords. Then, when he landed in front of the child on the 2nd floor, he raised his 2 swords again and cut them down without hesitation. "It's for the family." There was a hint of excitement in the child's voice. At the same time, his body deflected, dodging through the gap between the 2 swords. The blade fighter was shocked and immediately changed his move. But the child slapped a palm first and hit him on the chest. The strength that did not match his appearance made him unable to control his body and rubbed back. Then, before he could stand still, the child kicked him again. Boom! The powerful force made the blade fighter fly into the air, smashing through the wall like a cannonball, and falling into the next room. Only losing the bonds of family can make people so angry. The child followed leisurely through the hole in the wall, and saw the blade warrior lying in the ruins of the other side of the wall. His chest was sunken, and his face and arms were full of blood. But just the effort of the smoke and dust to dissipate has been restored to its original state. Looking at the blade warrior who stood up again, his eyes became dignified, but he did not lose his fighting spirit. The satisfaction in the child's eyes became stronger and stronger. The stronger your family's bond, the more angry you will be when you lose it, and you will become stronger, so powerful that you will destroy the enemy's clan. How deep is your family bond? Great enemy. He has encountered a lot of perverts, often when the other party's nerves are more abnormal. Reading www.themoreandmoreyugonshu.com will make unexpected behaviors. If you don't deal with it carefully, you will fall into defeat in one fell swoop. My name is Tired, do you want to be my family? The blade fighter who was in the counterattack posture was stunned, and several question marks appeared on his head. I've been looking forward to my real family, but no matter how I look, I can't find a real family. Lei said to himself, but you are different, you can be so angry for your lost family that you want to destroy your enemies. Your bond is genuine, and your words will definitely become my real family. The blade fighter slowly exhaled, and then looked tired with pity. Although I don't know what happened to you, I can tell you with certainty that I can't be your family. It's okay, I'm good at creating bonds. Her tired mood seemed to have recovered, and she said calmly, if you don't agree, I'll hang you up first, cut off your fingers one by one, and then cut off your toes one by one, and finally. SHH. The blade fighter interrupted his words with his actions, and his double swords turned into white ons and slashed. I don't know if I was tired because I didn't expect the opponent to suddenly attack or what, I didn't dodge at all, and was slashed on the neck by the blade. But... Ka. The blade was slashed on the neck, blocked by the skin, unable to move an inch. Impossible! The blade warrior exclaimed. Tired glanced at him, as if thinking of something, and some couldn't believe it, although I don't think so, but you have been approaching me since the beginning, don't you think that once you get close, you can solve it me? Manhattan, 13th Street. This is a commercial street, just a few minutes' drive from Stark Industrial Building. Of course, Gu Qing came here not to find Tony Stark, but to buy clothes for Otto. His otherworldly style of clothing looked a little weird in a modern city. However, because it was midnight, most of the shops were closed, and only the scattered 24HOUR shops were still lit. Why don't you come tomorrow? Gu Qing forgot about it everywhere. He didn't see any clothing stores open, so he was going back home for a late-night snack. Suddenly, he sensed the situation on the tired side. He and the puppet can share perception, but they can be shielded. After Gu Qing assigned Wu Mian and 12 Ghost Moon the task of quickly obtaining wish points, he let them play by themselves, while blocking perceptions other than Marvel's familiar characters. The reason for this is that they don't want to see the cruel behavior of ghosts, but they are worried that their actions will attract superheroes, which will lead to an out-of-control state of affairs. A series of major events in Marvel seems to have occurred frequently since the birth of Iron Man, but this does not mean that Marvel's bigwigs were born after Iron Man. As a transit station in the universe, the Earth carries too many secrets, and there are countless strong people, no matter how careful you are. Secondly, the emotions of the strong can provide him with more prayer points. Encounter familiar characters in Marvel, then act, make up stories, learn from mystery guest as a director, attract attention and trigger various strong emotions such as resonance, anger, justice, etc. Therefore, when the blade fighter broke into the tired lair, he knew it, and thought about it. What kind of story should we weave in order to reveal more information and let the blade fighter have a greater response to it? But God is not willing. Just as Gu Qing was composing the script, an uninvited guest interrupted his thinking. It was a whip, drawn from the darkness with a lingering golden light. Gu Qing, who was thinking about the problem, tilted his body subconsciously, let go of the whip, hit it on the ground, and burst it apart. And Gu Qing also squinted at the attacker in the dark. It was a pair of big bright eyes. Sorry, the other party was too dark, and he was wearing a linen robe of a Loki color, as if the whole person had melted into the darkness. All Gu Qing could see was a pair of bright big eyes. But even if he didn't see the specific appearance of the attacker, he also guessed the identity of the other party. Without the slightest hesitation, maximize cardiopulmonary function, take a deep breath. The air is gathered into a stream and inhaled into the abdomen, and then enters the limbs and bones with the blood flow, and turns into energy with the attributes of the sun. Breath of the sun, the four shapes, illusory sun rainbow. Pong! The flame burns from the blade, illuminating the night. Gu Qing held this sun wheel knife that appeared out of thin air, and with the help of the inertia of the body's bias, he slashed hard, and drew a sun-like flame wheel in the air. The hot flame made the air anxious. The attacker flicked his right hand, and the whip quickly retracted, connecting into one body and turning into a long stick, blocking him in front of him. When the knife slashed on the stick, making a heavy metallic sound. With the help of the firelight special effect, Gu Qing finally saw each other's face clearly in the facetophis. As imagined, it is an ascetic monk with a short head in a monk's uniform. A mage from Comitage, the future brother of Doctor Strange, Karl Amadeus Mordo. And the stick in his hand is the life court scepter. The two were holding weapons and wrestling with each other, but neither could do anything to the other. Just when they were about to draw their weapons to retreat and use other moves or magic to fight, they put both hands on the weapons. This is it. The voice was calm and calm. Gu Qing was startled and looked up in shock. I saw a bald woman in a beige monk's uniform standing beside them, smiling at the two of them. Ancient One. Although he knew from the beginning that Gu Yi would find him, even though he had guessed that Gu Yi was there since Mordo appeared. But the moment he saw her, Gu Qing almost called out her name. Fortunately, he had done so much psychological preparation in advance, and after all, he did not show any flaws in front of this Supreme Mage. Supreme Mage. Mo Du immediately put away his weapon and saluted Gu Yi respectfully. And Gu Qing also drew the knife and stepped back, pretending not to know each other, and watching the two of them vigilantly. Gu Yi first nodded slightly to Mo Du, then looked at Gu Qing. Young man, don't be afraid, I have no malice. Hearing this, Gu Qing finally breathed a sigh of relief. Secretly, it seems that my plan was successful. In the future, there will be more and more dolls, and the director's drama and even its influence will also grow. As a supreme mage, Gu Yi can observe the past, future and even parallel universes, and he will definitely notice himself. Although the system can use mysterious means to shield Gu Yi using time observation and other methods to discover the connection between himself and the doll. But since he wants to learn Mysterio as a director, he will inevitably have frequent contact with the puppets, and even play an important role in the drama he directs and performs. In this way, even if the truth cannot be found directly, some problems can be found through reasoning. Then, temptation is inevitable. And how can we not reveal the flaws and be cleaned up by the Ancient One as a pest of exotic latitudes? That is hero. Gu Qing set a rule for himself, Yu reading www.yuuganju. No matter how tempting Com is, the only way to connect with the dolls who play the role of bad guys is through remote contact and manipulation of the system. The only contact is to destroy their heroes. Even if they provide information indirectly, they stand on the stand of justice. In this way, whether it is observing the future or any other means, even if there is doubt, they can only see the superhero Gu Qing. Of course, Gu Qing has passed the age of second year, and he is not a guy with a strong sense of justice. If you let him play the role of the messenger of justice, he will not be able to play it, and it will even become an exposed flaw. Fortunately, he is not evil either. So he starred in his true colors, playing a dark hero who does not stick to the law and has a self-determination of good and evil in his heart. Gu Yi's attitude at this time just proved that the future self also strictly followed the rules set at the beginning. Otherwise, she is not just a test, but a direct shot. Who are you? At the same time as Gu Qing's heart was relaxed, there was no expression of joy on his face, and he still looked at them vigilantly. We are Comitage's mages. Well, you may still not understand this way. In other words, we are superheroes who secretly protect the safety of the Earth. Well, I do understand. Gu Qing nodded, still not letting his guard down, and sarcastically said, so, as a superhero, attacking me in the middle of the night is also to protect the peace of the Earth. I just had some doubts in my heart, so I tried it out. Mordo folded the life court scepter and apologized to Gu Qing. your strength is full of the brilliance of the sun, you can't be the companion of those dark creatures, I'm very sorry. Modu's attitude of apology was very sincere, and he was not dissatisfied at all because of Gu Qing's sarcasm. He is a rigid but sensible man. Once the right or wrong is determined, it will not be affected by external factors such as face and affection. Seeing this, Gu Qing also put away the sun wheel knife and asked, "So, what are you looking for from me? It's not convenient here, let's change place." Master Gu Yi snapped his fingers, and the bright sparks drew a circle in the air, revealing the scene on the other side of the space, a spacious villa hall full of 18th century British style. "All right." Gu Qing hesitated for a moment, then nodded in agreement. Seeing this, Gu Yi took the lead through the space door, Mo Du followed closely, and Gu Qing finally followed. Gu Pear stretched out his hand against the open space, and the coffee table and chair appeared out of thin air. With another wave of his hand, the teapot and cup that had cooked the tea also appeared on it. "Please." Gu sent an invitation to Gu Qing, and then sat on the chair, while Mo Du stood behind him like a follower. Gu Qing was not polite and sat upright on the chair. "I came to you this time because I have a few questions to ask." Gu Yi poured tea for Gu Qing and said, "A year ago, you appeared in Manhattan, New York out of thin air. 2 months ago, 15 cannibals appeared in New York." Filling the cup with tea, Gu Yi put down the teapot and stared straight at Gu Qing. "Do you know any clues?" "Yet. I know." Gu Qing admitted it generously, which surprised Gu Yi and Modu. He picked up the teacup, blew the heat lightly, took a sip, and continued, "They are ghosts, creatures from another world." There is no way for Gu Qing to admit it so generously. Because he is traversing in the flesh, not taking possession of the body. It's nothing to deceive Shield, who is not sure about the authenticity of the multiverse, but it is obviously impossible to deceive this supreme mage who can travel across multiple dimensions. No, it's not just the deception on professional issues, it's impossible to deceive her in ordinary conversation. This supreme master has lived for more than 500 years. He has not been in seclusion and cultivation like in the novels of immortality, but has gone through the vicissitudes of the world, observed the multiverse, and seen through human nature and the world. There may be people in this world who can deceive her, but it is definitely not me, a young man in his 20s. If you pretend to be smart and play tricks in front of the opponent, you will only be smart but be mistaken by smart. It's better to be frank and honest from the beginning. Of course, telling the truth does not mean telling the truth. Gu Yi is not an all-knowing and almighty God, she can't think about everything. And there is a gap in information between Gu Qing and her. As long as he doesn't leak his mouth, the other party can't think of it. A ghost from another world. Gu held the teacup to his mouth, but he didn't taste it for a long time. Instead, he was dazed, thinking about something, or he had already wandered in exotic latitudes, looking for clues or answers in other timelines. But for the answer of "from another world," neither Gu Yi nor Modu had any unexpected expressions, and they obviously understood this long ago. "Can you tell me the specific situation?" After being stunned for a while, Gu Yi looked at Gu Qing again and made a request. "Of course." Gu Qing smiled slightly, showing an expression of welcoming callous, "But I'm a businessman, and if I want to know something from me, I have to pay a price. Do you know that in front of you is?" Gu Yi raised his hand to stop Mordo's threat. She stared straight at Gu Qing and said, "Giving and receiving are equal. Your request is very reasonable, so what do you want in return? Money or something valuable will do." Although he really wanted something like the Book of Emperor Weishan, Gu Qing also knew that it was impossible. Moreover, the only reason to get paid is to maintain himself as a hero who walks in darkness, whether it is good or evil, and he wants the whole world to know about the creature, the ghost of another world. "What about the money?" Gu Yi pondered for a while, then took off the plum blossom ring on his left index finger. "This thing is not from a famous hand, it's just a gadget I made when I was learning magic. It can calm people's anger and impulse, and make the heart become more peace and tranquility. Is this thing enough for a reward? Let me see. Gu Qing took the ring, looked up and down, and secretly asked the system to help identify it. After confirming that there is no problem, he smiled contentedly. Although it's just a meditative gadget, it does have a history of 500 years. If you hype it up, you might be able to sell it at a sky-high price. That ghost from another world. They were originally humans too. Gu Qing put away the ring, sat upright, and said in detail, about 1,000 years ago in that world, a baby who was born with a weak heart, was born with great difficulty, but was almost cremated as a stillbirth. However, although he survived by relying on the desire to survive, his body is very weak and he can only lie in bed. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com. After a kind doctor knew about this, he developed a prescription for him, which not only let him get rid of his weak body, but also possessed the power of immortality and immortality, far exceeding ordinary people. But the price he pays is that he can never be exposed to the sun, and he must eat human flesh to survive. He is the source of all ghosts, Kimono Suji no miserable. As soon as Gu heard it, he didn't say a word. Master Mortu had doubts. You actually said that the doctor was kind. If he was kind, then why did he make the medicine for making ghosts? Also, is the medical technology in that world so advanced? Can you create such a monster? The doctor is really kind, and his original intention is not to create ghosts. Gu Qing picked up the teacup, took a sip, wet his throat, and then continued, that prescription is not a complete treatment process. But irony! The thing is, in the early stage of the treatment process, Wu Mian's condition not only did not improve, but worsened, which made Wu Mia think that he had been deceived and killed the doctor. In the end, the medical technology in that world was not so developed, the doctor was special case. Having said this, Gu Qing paused and continued, just like Tony Stark in this world, the prescription is his unique secret recipe, which is also Wu Mian's flaws such as being afraid of sunlight and having to eat people, but reasons that cannot be improved. This is the cycle of cause and effect. Gu Yi sighed and said, if there is no miserable heart, if he is not so narrow-minded and does not try to figure out the doctor with malice, he will probably become the ultimate perfect creature, not a ghost king who can only hide in the dark. Gu Qing disagreed with this. If it's really a causal cycle, then the doctor did not treat him horribly, but he himself ended up with a tragic death. How should this be calculated? Shouldn't he be meddling? Gu Yi smiled and seemed to see through Gu Qing's thoughts. But she didn't talk much about this issue, but changed the topic and returned to the theme. You know so clearly, it must be from another world. Gu Qing nodded in agreement. He held the teacup to his mouth, lowered his eyes, and asked jokingly, will you guardians of the earth destroy me as a visitor from another world? If you want to do this, do it on the first day you crossed. Moro replied with a bit of anger. Gu Qing's nature of getting paid for everything makes him very uncomfortable, so he is no longer as good as before, but he is not influenced by personal preferences to make emotional decisions. Comitage is indeed to defend against the invasion of foreign latitudes. But how big is the multiverse and how mysterious the world is, an occasional crossing of parallel universes happens from time to time. If they are wiped out indiscriminately, then we are not guardians anymore. Motu. After Gu Yi called out his disciple's name, he hesitated for a moment before continuing, when you call yourself a guardian, you are already occupied by arrogance. Don't be affected by these emotions, you will be taken advantage of. Is teacher? Moro apologized solemnly. Gu Yi nodded slightly, then looked at Gu Qing again, we are not guardians, we just hope that the place where we live together can develop forever, you don't have to care. No, you are the guardians. Gu Qing really wanted to say this, but seeing Gu Yi's serious expression, he nodded involuntarily and didn't talk too much about this topic. Going back to the topic, he said, I can feel your strength. A powerful character like you shouldn't be idle enough to deal with a small character like a ghost. Why are you looking for me? Those ghosts are not as powerful as foreign demons, but they are by no means small characters. Gu Yi stared at Gu Qing's eyes and said, I didn't care about you at first, but the ghosts later surprised me because I couldn't find them in the multiverse, and you too. On the day that Gu Qing traveled through, Gu Yi felt the abnormality of time and space and knew of his existence as a traveler. But at that time Gu Qing was just an ordinary person. Gu Yi didn't care, until the appearance of the ghost. She reobserved the timeline and the multiverse. Then, except for the ghost and Gu Qing found in the future timeline, no trace of ghost and Gu Qing was found in other worlds of the multiverse. And Gu Qing, who originally thought he was just an ordinary person, will also become a superhero with extraordinary strength and a lightweight status in the future. That's why she made time to find Gu Qing. What she cares about is not the harm caused by ghosts in society. As she said, these ghosts are not small characters, but they are not as powerful as foreign demons. And the foreign demon is the standard for her to shoot. There is no crisis of human or earth destruction. Gu Yi will not deliberately take action, unless the crisis comes to her door. She didn't look for Gu Qing because he and the ghosts were from another world, but because she was worried about some unknown changes in the multiverse that she couldn't observe, and there would be people or creatures from other worlds coming one after another. Although most of the traversers are ordinary people or things who have traversed by accident, they have no influence on the development of the world, but there are also many accidents. She traveled in the multiverse, and saw a creature named Godzilla, comic collaboration, come to New York, beat up all the Avengers and supervillains, and caused a world where several cities were almost completely destroyed. She has also seen the world of the innocent giant, comic collaboration, appearing, wantonly eating people. She even remembers the appearance of characters that originally only existed in comics, fought against many gods in the Marvel Universe, and finally almost lost the universe, the linkage between Marvel and DC. She still remembers the traveler who infected the world with a terrible virus. People without thought, he must worry about. Gu Qing and 15 ghosts crossed into this world within a year. She had to do something. At least understand what happened. Otherwise, this time it is a ghost, what will it be next time? What? Don't you look for answers from the future? But the future will change. In particular, people or creatures like traversers who did not belong to the native world originally had no records about them in the future, and would only appear after they traversed. This makes it pointless to explore answers from the timeline. Facing Gu Yi's question, Gu Qing did not answer directly, but said another thing, although I know about the ghosts, I and they are not from the same world. What? Mordo looked at him in surprise. Gu Yi was lost in thought. Gu Qing smiled, ignoring the reaction of the two, and continued, just like Master Gu Yi can understand the multiverse, I can also understand many other worlds for some reason. It's no wonder that the auras of the times on you are different. It turns out that you really don't belong to the same world. Gu Yi took a deep breath. Every time she looked at the ghosts and Gu Qing, she felt a sense of incongruity. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com. Now that Gu Qing broke it, he suddenly realized that it was the atmosphere of the times, such as habits caused by different ages. There are many changes in the multiverse, I can't stop it, I can't stop the temptation to become stronger, but in the future there will be more and more travelers coming. Gu Qing continued. Moro looked at Gu Yi, his face was as usual. She thought for a moment and asked, then do you know who will cross over? I don't know. Gu Qing shook his head lightly, and immediately said, but because of the characteristics of change, it is more difficult for a strong person to pass through, the higher level dolls and items are more difficult to draw, so the ancient master you don't have to worry about it that much. Yet. Gu Yi nodded slightly, no matter what, the world's self-protection mechanism is still there. If a guy who is too strong invades, it will also respond, whether it is suppressing the intruder or finding a man of destiny to save the world. Neither will let the intruder succeed so easily. There are 5 creation gods in the Marvel world. They are infinity, annihilation, death, swallowing stars, and eternity. Except swallowing stars represents a certain responsibility, the other 4 gods are all concepts or simply the embodiment of the world. The world is their body. When there is a problem with their own body, they will naturally look for a way to cure them. Gu Qing has not read Marvel Comics, but he has watched some short videos. He often sees the XX universe crisis. A certain superhero obtains some kind of power or artifact to save the universe from the crisis. This is their way of saving themselves. Of course, this does not mean that Gu Qing is against them. Because death is also one of the laws of nature. As long as the method is right, you can even get the help of the 5 gods to destroy the world. Of course, although it is possible to use the rules reasonably to destroy the world, Gu Qing will never do this. The basis for him to obtain the wish value is the intelligent creature. As for the intelligent creatures on the earth, apart from the Atlantis Sea clan, a small number of vampires, demons, and gods living in the world, they are only humans. Not only will he not destroy the world, but he will be the first to save when the world is in danger. Not how great he is, but what he needs. After that, Gu Yi asked many questions one after another. Gu Qing felt that those who could answer answered truthfully, and those who could not answer would switch concepts or bypass the topic. Gu Qing's more than 500 years of life experience can tell that Gu Qing did not lie, and the magic instrument for detecting lies in the sanctuary can also confirm that he did not lie. Although she could see that Gu Qing had reservations on certain issues, but because of Gu Qing the future is a relationship between superheroes and poor information. She preconceived that Gu Qing would not deceive him about this kind of thing. She only felt that those concealments were related to the privacy that the other party did not want to mention, and were small issues that were irrelevant to the overall situation. As everyone knows, all of this was deliberately created by Gu Qing. Use the information gap to create the identity of the future superhero, thereby creating preconceived ideas, and then answering unanswered questions. When Gu Qing decided to let Wu Mian and 12 Gu Yu let go, he considered these issues and made preparations. And all of this went smoothly. Gu Yi found no flaws. After asking some questions and not getting the answers he wanted, he sent him back to Manhattan. Ding! You got 26,000 prayer points. It's worthy of being the supreme mage and Mage Mordo. Hearing the prompt sound in his head, Gu Qing couldn't help but admire in his heart. There are only 2 people, and there is not much emotional fluctuation, but they provide so much prayer value. I really look forward to when you are shocked and moved. Gu Qing sighed in his heart, and immediately, his consciousness shifted to the tired side. But unfortunately, the battle over there is over. The time moved forward a little by 5 minutes. That's true. Seeing the other person's shocked expression, Tired knew that he had guessed correctly, so he couldn't help sneering, "My body is much harder than spider silk, you can't even cut my spider silk, why do you think you can get close to me?" The blade fighter didn't speak, he drew his sword and stepped back. On the way, the blade returned to its sheath, and the pistol was drawn to shoot. Tired did not dodge and let the bullet hit his body. The modified large-caliber pistol is extremely powerful, leaving large holes in the body that is harder than steel. But the bullet had just penetrated into the body, and before it flew out from the back, the wound on the front had healed itself as before. Apart from the torn clothes, there is no visible injury at all. The blade fighter widened his eyes like a bull, and his expression was full of disbelief. This recovery ability has far surpassed that of vampires. There's nothing I can do. Tired turned a flower rope in his hand, his face turned cold. If you still don't agree, I'll have to grab you firmly, and then force you to agree little by little. Between the words, the tired hands seemed to be infected with blood and turned scarlet. And this scarlet is like a virus that can be infected, and it also dyes the flower rope red along the spider silk. The blade fighter felt a more oppressive and dangerous aura from Tired. He is very familiar with this breath, because he is also often released. Every time he hunted down vampires, he would release the breath of a hunter that made the prey tremble so loudly that he didn't dare to resist. Didn't this monster use all its strength before? The Blade Warrior was horrified. Blood ghost art, killing eye cage. The murderous intention burst out, and the tired hands flicked, the flower rope in his hand flew out, and weaved an all-round silk screen during the flight. Then, tighten up. Boom! The wall was torn apart. The figure of the Blade Warrior disappeared in place. He fled, breaking the wall before the cobweb fell. The spider silk skill that combines powerful control and killing, a hard, high recovery body, far surpasses the physical strength of ordinary people, and the melee skills seem to be not weak. Although the blade fighters are not ruthless, they can never force their hands. A very calm guy. When the silver bullet couldn't contain the opponent's resilience, he knew that this was a battle destined to be unwinnable. So he decisively gave up the fight and ran away. Ding! You got 4,000 prayer points. Looking at the prayer points for the contribution of the blade fighters in the historical records, Gu Qing fell into deep thought. The blade fighter belongs to the same rank level as him. It is reasonable to say that it is difficult for a guy of this level to provide so many wish points all at once. Unless, his mood swings are very big. It seems that Tired has made a deep impression on him. Gu Qing pondered slightly. People will instinctively deny things beyond their cognition and call them the truth, but once the things beyond cognition appear in front of them, they will become dumbfounded. The current blade fighter has not yet sucked blood, his strength is still very weak, he has not destroyed the blood-sucking empire, and he has never fought his old enemy Dracula. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com. His current knowledge of dark creatures is still limited to ordinary vampires who do not follow the rules of the vampire empire and hunt humans outside. And the level of those vampires. To be honest, even an ordinary human army can handle it. It's normal to feel shocked when suddenly encountering a ghost who belongs to the 12 ghost months like T. Such a high-quality customer can't be let go once, and he has to find a way to let him know more about the power of the Ghost King. Although the Marvel world is full of superheroes and supervillains, it is still a world composed of 99% of ordinary people. No matter how deep their emotional fluctuations are, they can only give very little prayer value. But let's go back first, and the lottery can be held again. Gu Qing glanced at the almost empty street, tightened his collar, and walked back. Shield, Director's Office. Coulson inserted the USB flash drive into the projector and pressed the switch. Immediately, the information was put on the wall. Coulson said, through surveillance video investigation, these 14 people appeared near the scene of the crime more than once, and they are also the most suspected people. Fury looked at the information on the wall, his eyes narrowed. That is the image data of 14 Asians. Each of them has a personality. Although wearing modern clothes, there are more or less decorations on their faces, hands, and pupils, which are very personal. Have you found out who they are? No. Coulson said, I can't find their information, I don't know their names, I don't know their origins, I don't know their family status, but they only started 2 months ago, and they have been found in surveillance video in New York one after another. Just like Gu Qing. Well, it seems to have appeared out of thin air, and I can't find the previous trajectory of existence. Coulson paused when he said this, with a thoughtful look on his face. He knew that Fury's question of same didn't just refer to the similarities between the two, but also asked whether there was a relationship between them, such as accomplices or something. After all, this is a guy whose past even SHIELD could not find out. How did you, a small intelligence agent, know about it? Could it be that this was a drama directed and performed by SHIELD from the very beginning? Or, is there a secret that SHIELD doesn't know about? Either way, it is an extremely dangerous development, and Fury will never allow it to happen. The 14 people in the surveillance video are all in the night or in the shadows, which is in line with Gu Qing's weakness of being afraid of the sun, but it's not certain whether they happen to be only captured by the surveillance cameras at night or in the shadows, or if they were only in the absence of sunlight. Where it appears. Carlson continued to analyze, but Gu Qing has cooperated with our SHIELD twice before. He is very aware of the size of SHIELD. Small. However, Gu Qing can act under the Sunday. If the ghost he said is afraid of the sun, it at least proves that he is not a ghost. Considering the fact that ghosts can eat people, it is difficult to imagine that there will be a companionship between food and predators. That is to say, the possibility that they are accomplices is very low, right? Fury came to the conclusion directly. Yes. Carlson nodded slightly. Although it is not entirely impossible that they are accomplices in terms of human nature, whether it is from the information obtained from the investigation or the judgment of him from the 2 previous cooperations, it is impossible for him to be the kind who can eat cannibals. Evil spirits become companions. But he knows these ordinary guys who appear out of thin air, and also knows their characteristics, and even has weapons to deal with them. But he chose to sell the weapons to us. If they are accomplices, why should they sell and tell us the weapons and weaknesses that can deal with their comrades? What if his purpose was to sell news and weapons to make money? Is it possible? Carlson retorted, if it is a large amount of hundreds of millions of dollars, it is okay to say, but it is only a few 100,000, a few million. In terms of his ability, it is not difficult to earn. Hearing this, Fury fell silent. In the 2 cooperation between S.H.I.E.L.D. and Gu Qing, one of them was about the case of Tony Stark being kidnapped and disappeared in the Middle East. He provided the information that the mastermind behind it is Obadiah. Just for this piece of information, he received $30 million from SHIELD and Stark Industries respectively. Such a person would never be able to direct and act for the benefit of millions of yuan. This basic logic. If it was the past, Fury would never go wrong. But he noticed the danger of the other party to SHIELD from the previous call with Gu Qing, and his brain subconsciously judged him as the enemy side. The intelligence department of SHIELD has never stopped investigating Gu Qing. Although they still haven't found out about his past, they know the trajectory of his daily life like the back of the hand. Carlson continued, he usually works in that little convenience. The receptionist in the store had an accident, just wandering around and spending in various leisure places in New York with nothing to do, no friends, no acquaintances, and no inquiries from anyone. Or, the people he contacted had no channels to know the news. What do you mean? Gu Qing is likely to have the superpower of clairvoyance that can find out information even while sitting at home. Carlson came to a conclusion and explained Fury's doubts at the same time. This possibility is very high. After pondering for a while, Fury agreed with Carlson's statement, and then added, but Gu Qing's suspicion still exists, you can send someone to test him. I'm going to prepare. Also, find the 14 people immediately and conduct a confirmation investigation. Yes. Rare visitor. In the dark alley, looking at the man in the dark tights, Gu Qing put on a smile. Master Gu Qing, you are finally back. Otto breathed a sigh of relief, and then said, this man has something for you, but he only talks to you. It's okay, let me talk. Gu Qing took out a cigarette from his pocket and lit it in his mouth, then looked at the man in front of him comfortably. I remember that you were the one with Jin Bing, called Bullseye, right? Even knowing this, it seems that you are indeed an information dealer with mysterious channels as rumored. Bullseye looked at him with a sneer. Am I already so famous? Gu Qing chuckled and didn't care, and exhaled softly, so, what's the matter with Jinbian asking you to come to me? Recently, there have been some rambunctious guys coming to New York. They stole Jinbian's business. No. They robbed Jinbian's territory. No. Gu Qing looked at him in surprise and asked, then what did they do to provoke Jin and seek them? They killed people. Shh. Gu Qing couldn't help laughing, and even nearly choked on the smoke. Jin and he himself are the head of the underworld. More than 40% of the crimes in New York are related to him, and now he is going to find a murderer. Boy, show me some respect for my attitude. Bullseye looked at Gu Qing coldly, and said coldly, if you don't know about it, I'll let you go this time, but next time I'm so rude to the boss, I can die. You reading www.yuyuganshu.com. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to laugh, I just thought it was very strange. A gang boss wanted to catch a murderer or something. Did he kill your people? Don't ask if there are things you shouldn't ask, so you can live longer. Bullseye said indifferently, but this situation is not a secret that can't be told, so I'll tell you, that group of people violated the boss's decision. Order under. Order. The White Way has the order of the White Way, and the underworld has the order of the underworld. As the Emperor of New York's underground world, Mr. Jinping is the order, and no one can go against his will. Understood, let's talk about the specific situation. This. Seeing Bullseye handing over a newspaper, Gu Qing threw away the cigarette and stomped it out, then took the newspaper. The headline above is Cannibal Case Reappears. Gu Qing. Are you here to find Wu Miser and 12 Ghost Moon again? Gu Qing was a little speechless. He let Wu Mian and 12 Ghost Moon go. He thought he would only catch Shield and Gu Yi, but he unexpectedly encountered the unexpected joy of Blade Warrior. Now it has caught Jinping's attention again. Is this more than one bait fishing? What's the matter, are there any clues? Both of them were standing outside the window of the convenience store, the lights were bright, and Bullseye could see the change in Gu Qing's expression, so they couldn't help but ask. It's nothing. Gu Qing shook his head lightly and answered truthfully, it's just that someone came to me just now to ask for information on these murderers. Then you know the clue. $200,000. Boom. Bullseye lifted a suitcase from the ground, placed it until the window opened, and it was neatly filled with $100 bills.